You felt it last Tuesday. Maybe it was a Sunday. Maybe it was the middle of a crowded room, surrounded by noise and movement and other people's laughter. There was a moment, quiet, ordinary, completely invisible from the outside, when something in your chest pulled tight, like a fist closing around something soft. You called it loneliness. But that word is too small for what was actually happening inside your body. Because what you felt was not just emotional, it was a warning system, one that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to keep you alive, and one that is now misfiring in the modern world in ways that are quietly, measurably, physiologically killing people. This is the story of why being alone physically hurts. In 2015, a neuroscientist named John Cacioppo published findings that changed the way scientists understood the human body. Cacioppo had spent decades at the University of Chicago studying loneliness, not as a feeling, not as a mood, but as a biological state with measurable physical consequences. What he found was not what anyone expected. Loneliness activates the same neural pathways as physical pain, the same regions of your brain that fire when you burn your hand, when you break a bone, when something in your body is genuinely damaged. Those exact regions fire when you feel socially isolated. Your brain does not distinguish between a physical wound and a social one. To your nervous system, being alone is an injury, not a metaphor for an injury, an actual neurologically registered, biochemically real injury. Think about that for a moment. Your brain treats exclusion the same way it treats a broken bone. But why? Why would evolution wire the human brain to experience social rejection as a physical wound? Why would a feeling have a pain response? The answer goes back further than you might think, further than civilization, further than language, further than the species you would even recognize as human. About 50 million years ago, your earliest primate ancestors made a shift that would define everything that came after. They stopped living alone and started living in groups. This was not philosophy or preference. It was survival arithmetic. A single primate alone in the forest was easy prey. A group could spot predators earlier, share knowledge of food and water, defend the young, and pool memory across dozens of individuals. The ones who stayed connected lived. The ones who wandered off alone left nothing behind. Over millions of years, natural selection did what it always does. It encoded the lesson into biology. Your brain built a system that made isolation feel dangerous, because isolation was dangerous. If you strayed too far from your group, your brain needed a mechanism to push you back urgently, the same way pain pulls your hand back from a flame. So it triggered a physical alarm, not the polite ache of sadness, real, intrusive, bodily pain, the kind that refuses to be ignored, the kind that makes you move. That system is still inside you, right now, running continuously, watching. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA designed a now famous experiment called the Cyberball study to test this. Participants lay inside brain scanners and played a simple digital ball tossing game with what they believed were two other real participants in another room. At a certain point in the game, without warning or explanation, the other player stopped passing the ball to them. They were left out, silently, in a video game, for a few minutes in a sterile laboratory, and the scans showed activity lighting up in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain. The participants had not been touched. They had not been threatened. They had been excluded from a casual digital game, and their brains responded as though they had sustained a physical injury. Your brain cannot tell the difference between social exclusion and a physical wound. That is not a metaphor. That is a finding that has been replicated in varying forms across dozens of independent studies on multiple continents with participants from radically different cultural backgrounds. The architecture is universal. It was built into you long before you were born. Now here's where it becomes stranger still. Loneliness does not just cause pain in the moment. It changes your body at a cellular level over time. When your nervous system detects sustained social isolation, it shifts into what researchers call a threat-based orientation. Cortisol floods your bloodstream, your cardiovascular system tightens, sleep becomes shallower and less restorative, your blood pressure edges up, and your immune system does something remarkable. It pivots its strategy entirely. It moves away from defending against viruses and toward preparing for bacterial infection, because throughout most of human evolutionary history, isolation meant exposure to physical danger, and physical danger meant wounds, and wounds meant bacteria. Your body starts bracing for a fight that is almost certainly not coming, but it does not know that. Steve Cole, a molecular biologist at the University of California, Los Angeles, has spent years studying what chronic loneliness does at the genetic level. His research has shown that persistent social isolation actually changes the pattern of gene expression in your white blood cells. In people experiencing long-term loneliness, genes associated with inflammation are switched on at higher rates. Genes associated with antiviral defense are suppressed. Your immune system has literally reorganized itself around the expectation of physical injury, because the ancient signal your body is receiving says, you are alone, you are vulnerable, and something with teeth is probably nearby. The logic was flawless 50,000 years ago on an open savanna. It is catastrophic in a modern apartment building where your nearest neighbor is 12 inches away through drywall, but your genes do not know what year it is. They know only what your nervous system is telling them. And right now, if you have been lonely for a long time, your nervous system is running a survival script written before cities existed, before agriculture existed, before the concept of a house. And here's the cruelest part of the entire mechanism. Loneliness does not just hurt you. It makes it harder to stop being lonely. When the threat detection system in your brain stays activated long enough, it begins to recalibrate the way you read other people. Neutral facial expressions start to register as hostile. Ambiguous comments start to sound like rejection. Social situations that once felt easy begin to feel like risks, because your nervous system has decided, based on the signal it keeps receiving, that other people are more likely to be sources of danger than sources of safety. So you pull back, you guard yourself, you preempt the rejection you've started to expect before it can happen. And in pulling back, you deepen your isolation, which escalates the threat signal, which makes you read the world as more dangerous, which makes you pull back further still. Cacioppo called this the loneliness loop. It is one of the most self-sustaining cycles in human psychology, a system built originally to push you toward your social group, which, when activated too long or too intensely, begins instead to push you steadily away from everyone around you. Think about someone you know who seems closed off, who doesn't trust easily, who holds people at a careful distance and disappears before anyone gets too close. Their brain is not broken. It's not a personality flaw or a character defect. Their nervous system is executing an ancient survival protocol in a context that protocol was never designed to address. It is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is just doing it in the wrong century. Now step back. Look at the world you actually live in. You live in an era of unprecedented human connectivity. You carry a device capable of reaching any person on the planet within seconds. You can see faces, hear voices, exchange words with hundreds of people without leaving your bed. By every external measure, you are more connected to more human beings than any person who has ever lived. And yet you are part of one of the loneliest generations in recorded history. In 2018, a nationwide survey conducted by health insurer Cigna found that nearly half of all American adults reported sometimes or always feeling alone. 40% said they lacked meaningful connection in their daily lives. 22% said they had no close friends at all. The United Kingdom appointed a minister for loneliness that same year, formally designating social isolation as one of the most serious public health crises facing the country. Multiple studies have now found that chronic loneliness is associated with a reduction in lifespan, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not figuratively, epidemiologically, the data seems impossible until you understand the biology. Your brain was not built for digital contact. It was built for physical proximity, for shared space, for the micro expressions that move across a person's face in under half a second. The warmth of another body nearby, the sound of breathing in a quiet room, the 1,000 unconscious signals that pass between two people who are simply present with each other. These are the inputs your nervous system evolved to receive over millions of years. They are the signals that reach the ancient, hypervigilant part of your brain and say, finally, clearly, you are with your people. You are not alone. The alarm can stop. A text message does not send that signal. A voice note does not send that signal. A string of reaction emojis at 2 a.m. from someone in another time zone does not send that signal. Your nervous system is not reading your notifications. It is scanning for presence, for proximity, for the irreplaceable, untranslatable bodily experience of another human being actually being there, in the same room, breathing the same air, close enough to touch. You can be in contact with 500 people every day, and your nervous system can still be running a 50,000-year-old alarm that says you are alone in the dark and the predators are close. Robert Waldinger is the director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development. It is the longest-running study of human adult life ever conducted, tracking hundreds of individuals across their entire lifespans since 1938 through wars, recessions, family changes, illness, and old age. Waldinger has spent his career sifting through nearly a century of data, searching for a clear answer to one question: what actually makes people live longer, healthier, and more fulfilled lives? Not what people believe will make their lives better. What the data shows. The answer is not income, not career achievement, not diet or exercise habits at the outset, not even baseline health or genetics. The clearest, most consistent predictor of longevity and well-being across the entire data set is the quality of a person's close relationships, not the quantity of social contacts, not how often they interact with others, the depth, the felt sense of being genuinely known, not performed at, not managed, not broadcast to, but actually known by at least one other person. That signal, that specific, quiet, irreplaceable signal. That is what your nervous system has been waiting for since long before your species had a name for what it needed. So tonight, when you feel that pull in your chest, that familiar wordless ache you have spent your whole life calling loneliness, know what it actually is. It is a 2 million-year-old survival system doing exactly what it was built to do. It is your brain running the same code that kept your ancestors alive in the dark, in the cold, with predators nearby, and nothing but the presence of other people standing between them and death. It is the encoded memory of every human who survived because they stayed close, firing inside your nervous system in a world your ancestors could never have imagined. The feeling is not weakness. It is not neediness. It is not something broken in you that needs to be fixed or managed or buried under an endless scrolling feed. It is your body telling you the truth, and the truth is the same as it has always been. The same truth felt by every human being who has ever sat alone in the quiet and felt the weight of the distance between themselves and the people they belong with. You were not built to be alone. You felt it last Tuesday. Your body knew before your mind did. It has always known.